it is time for Q&A. So for all of our attendees, please use the Q&A in the side panel to pose your questions. I know you can't see one another, and I apologize for that, but we can see everything you write. So we'll be reading your questions, and Rosalind will pose these to Dr. Muhammad. So please go ahead, start writing the questions from your heart that you've been dying to ask Dr. Muhammad, and I will turn it over now to Rosalind.
Thank you, Dr. Zade and Dr. Muhammad. We do have 2 questions right now. So the first question says, responding to the social and political times seems to be a bit of a gray area, especially now with COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement. How can I use the framework to respond to our current social and political times without being disrespectful or unethical?
So that's a bit of, I have a lot of like follow-up questions for that, but I'll just tell you what the questions are. Like by teaching a humanizing framework, who is that disrespecting? Racist people? And then why are we concerned about them, right? So who is it disrespecting? You're not going to, by teaching a Black framework, you're not disrespecting Black children, brown children, white children, because I can't think of any child that doesn't need identity, skills, criticality, and intellectualism and joy. All students need and deserve that. And so the model, the framework was designed to be a response to the social times. And so you're asking yourself, how am I teaching in response to my students' identities? That's identity pursuit. And how am I teaching in response to the social times? That is the criticality pursuit. Our social times are uneven, they're painful. By teaching about them and teaching students to navigate and understand racism, sexism, and any other hate, that can only offend the oppressor. That's not going to offend us, the rest of us, but it will offend people who want sexism to remain. They want racism to remain. They want Muslims to be perceived a certain way. And I don't think we need to be worried about offending them. They need to be worried, they need to be doing better by children. Or frankly, they need to just leave education. I mean, that's the truth of it. If you're creating, you know, I talked again about this yesterday, like the oath that medical practitioners and doctors take to do no harm. We have to embody and take the same oath. And we do harm in like sneaky ways in education, in implicit ways. They call them microaggressions sometimes. Ain't nothing micro about these aggressions that are happening to our children.
Amen. Oh, take it all in, family. So our next question is more so about, we have a participant who's homeschooling their son and they wants to know what curriculum is available beyond your book.
So, I tell myself every day, like when like Toni Morrison said, the book you want to read, and if it's not out there, you have to write it. I mean, I feel the same way about curriculum. I have been, in the last 3 months, in conversations with Scholastic, McGraw-Hill, News Ella, Curriculum Associate Lucy Calkins. All these folks are really interested in my model. But historically, all of the folks do have a record of presenting skills-only curriculum. And that's what people have most access to. And so, I'm going to answer your question. I don't know fully. I know people who are developing curriculum. I know like a lot of like Black-centered, African-centered schools, curriculum may look a little different. I think you can call like the local schools, the local African-centric schools in the community. I think that you can take a curriculum and refine it toward these goals. But I think that's what teachers and parents mostly do right now. They take a curriculum and they refine it. But you can Google and search for culturally responsive lesson plans. They're out there. The textbook lists are out there. So email me, and I'm going to send you like a folder, and we can send this to all the participants, a folder of resources, but also like some links to some curriculum materials that I found that I've just used here and there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Next question is, can you recommend some Muslim educators to look at as foundations for education?
Me? No, I'm just kidding. You know, I don't know. Like historically, Clara Muhammad, like many people have heard of the Clara Muhammad schools around the nation. I mean, those have been open like over 75 years. My mother did her dissertation on Clara Muhammad. She was like an educator that, like a hidden figure that people don't know about. But she started in like some of the nation's like first like culturally responsive schools, if you will. So that's the one that stands out and who I've sort of studied about the most. You know, I don't think it always has to be formal educators. Her son, Warif Dean, was like a really strong educator. I love Muhammad Khalifa's work right now. He wrote a fabulous book about culturally responsive leadership. I think it's published by Harvard Ed. And he talks about this on a leadership level, but then also, you know, taps into the instructional work as well. So those are some good starting points.
Thank you for that question and answer. So let's see, seen a lot of questions. How would you use criticality when teaching a canon text such as Lord of the Flies, but you can't change the text?
Okay, so this is where you have to layer more text in, right? And so look at the theme within that text, and then layer like interviews. This is where you have to be innovative and creative a bit as the teacher, and layer in different perspectives of that theme from Black and brown communities. Videos and images. You know, when you have like a book in the so-called canon that you have to teach, and it's connected to you keeping your job maybe, when teachers have that, when they don't have any flexibility, I say you have flexibility to layer in more text and to do some, you know, different text that they can read in company of the anchor text.
Wonderful. How can we use what you have presented to help teachers apply to family engagement in schools?
So I think you should always, I think you need to always think about what families and what they can do together as a family unit. You don't grade the family connection, but you know, when I taught middle school this summer. I taught middle school kids. It was 3-hour classes. I mean, 3 hour in the afternoon and 3 hour in the morning and the afternoon, 30 kids each. And so what we did, like an example, like one week we had them, it was hip hop and STEM and literacy, right? So we had them write with their family. Each family member had to write a rhyme and do a family cipher. And so they, some of them did it and they sent pictures. Maybe some of them didn't. It's okay. But like, think about like something cool and interesting that they can do that will contextualize what you're teaching. So in that instance, I was teaching language. We were teaching about elements of hip hop and rhyme and how to use language. And so that was a cool way for them to practice it. It wasn't homework. It was just a recommended home. So if you put like an example of what you're doing, I can tell you what would be like a strong home connection. Another example of a home connection is I created a unit plan of the history of hair, of African American hair. And for their home connection, they had to look through photo albums of digital photos maybe, of old hair pictures and talk about their hair stories and their families. How have your hair changed? When you cut your hair, did that change your identity? They had to do that at home with their family.
Dr. Muhammad, this question says, I also value the work of our ancestors, Du Bois, Cooper, and Woodson. Could you share your thoughts on how to counter criticisms of some of them being assimilationist in their approach to schooling?
Yeah, you need to call out. Tell the truth. You got to study their histories, but also tell the truth. It's okay to do that. Black folks, I respect W.E.B. He may not have been like a brother I hang out with today, like my homie, right? But I respect him. I respect what he contributed in his scholarship. So certainly, but I think you have to, and some people ask me, like, what about teaching these really great, like, authors of color who have been in the news for Me Too? What do? Do you still teach them? I say you tell the truth. Be honest. It's okay. And then balance perspectives off. Don't just always give the WEB-like perspective, right? Give different perspectives and know the fullness of their life. But one thing about them, like people pit Black folks and abolitionists against each other. They pit folks like Booker T and WEB. I don't spend a lot of time pitting them against each other like some people do. These Black men wanted anti-racism. They had more in common than they had not in common. So keep those things in mind when you're like teaching about these different perspectives.
Awesome. I think we have some time for a few more questions. This one says, how do you suggest teachers work around a required curriculum that doesn't include anything that was mentioned tonight?
Well, it includes one of the things.
Yeah, the skills.
Yeah.
Well, the criticality, the cultural, historical responsiveness, while meeting the requirements of the district without being punished or fired.
Yeah. So what I'm asking you to do is 5 things, and they are asking you for 1. You are giving them, let me be very clear, you are giving them what the district is asking. You're not going to be fired for doing better and for doing more. I have never seen a teacher fired for being excellent and not. They're asking you to be basic. You're saying, nope, I'm going to be excellent. They're not going to fire you for teaching the skills in a contextualized form. As a matter of fact, they're probably going to praise you. They're probably going to spotlight you as like this innovative teacher. And you need to go talk to the administrators of color. And if you work in a school that teaches Black and brown students, how can you not teach these things when it's so connected to who they are? See, leaders have to be very careful because they'll be the first ones. I've been a district administrator. I've been a school board president. I was a principal for 3 weeks. That didn't last. I was like, I'd rather be working in curriculum. But one thing that school leaders do is they can talk the talk. They talk that rhetoric of equity, of anti-racism, of culturally responsiveness, But you got to follow it up by supporting teachers to do this work. How are you going to send a teacher to my professional development and then punish them for enacting the change that I suggest? You know, I asked principals that, and they said, I'm not going to fight. They're not going to be punished for doing all of this. This is great. So you need to be prepared as a teacher, as a professional, to defend your pedagogy. Don't just teach something because your district told you to teach it. That's being absent-minded. That's not being genius. Don't just teach something because I'm telling you to do it this way. That's being a passive consumer of information. I want you to question me, question them, and figure out what your students need. And when you develop what you develop, be ready to defend it. Get your parents on board. Notify them, this is what we're doing. Are you in agreement with me, right? Get them on board and defend your pedagogy. Know why the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing. And trust me, when you're doing 5 things instead of 1, people will look at you in pleasant ways, not in punitive ways.
Awesome, awesome. This question was actually asked through the registration, and I think that it aligns to some of what you were just speaking to. So it says, for many people, change is difficult to handle. How do you deal with the pushback? And how do you convince others that all students in curriculum can be shaped with your framework, especially in the elementary level?
Okay, so let's talk about change first. Remember, education is about changing the lives and being changed yourself. It's not just about changing lives of other people. Also remember, this is not a personal business. We cannot do everything how we want to do it. We need to do it in response to what our children need. So I get it. Change is uncomfortable. And nobody wants to be uncomfortable. And then sometimes we just tired of change as teachers because every year it's a new initiative, right? It's a new acronym to remember. So now we got culture, CRE, CSRE, all these things. I get it. It's frustrating. That's why I said you have to not be passive consumers of professional development even. You have to know what you're doing. Now, what happens when there's resistance? I am not in a sales position to try to sell humanity to people, to get people to have buy-in, ownership, investment of this. This is not capitalism. This is people's lives. And parents have trusted you with their babies. And I don't know about you. I don't have children of my own, but I treat other people's children like to the highest. When I'm with, like, even when I'm with other people, like, I really keep an eye on them, you know, because somebody trusted me with their worlds and their lives. And so you have to think about it that way. You are not, and who are you accountable to? Are you accountable to the superintendent? Are you see, I don't think like that. I don't think I'm accountable to pleasing my creator and my parents and these people's families, my children and their families. That's who I'm first accountable to. And so you have to shift your thinking. This is not culturally and historically responsive education. It's not about these hierarchies of power. We are a community of learners. And if you should be worried about anybody, it should be like giving the children what they need for a quality life. We should not have to sell humanity to other teachers. Why do I have to, why should I have to encourage you to be anti-racist, to teach in socially just ways? That's a shame. I would say shame on you, colleague. And I would be kind and I would be pleasant. And if they wanted my help, I would probably help them. But I would probably say shame on you because you got Black and brown children and we need to do better. It's 2020. So we have to cultivate our genius. We have to ask ourselves, who are we? Are you that teacher that's going to lead others into the fold? Are you going to say, I ain't worried about them. I'm going to teach my students the right way. And either way is either way. I'm not promoting either way. It depends on who you are. But if you complain about it, or if you have a problem with it, maybe you might be the person to help them. I'm not saying you are, because you don't get paid to educate your colleagues. They don't give you extra stipend for that. So you don't have to do it, but you can show them, you can model your instruction and share with them. My first year of teaching, I asked my school principal, I said, can I just have 15 minutes set aside to teach the faculty something new? And they all looked at me crazy. And somebody said, she needs to sit her ass down. And I'm like, no, I will never sit down. I remember telling myself that. But, I was always a teacher educator. I could feel it. And so for those 15 minutes, I showed them a graphic organizer or something new. And so, ask yourself, who are you? Maybe you can help bring them into the fold of this work. Sorry, that was a long response. Sorry.
No, Dr. Muhammad, because I was going to say, in case people missed, how do you respond to the pushback? First of all, I can just hear the cultivation of your genius in your response of that's how you push back.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not, if you're not prepared, if you haven't studied, if you haven't studied the framework, you're not going to know what to say if you don't know yourself. So I just.
Yeah, and sis, it also takes time, to not take it personally. That comes with time, and because it's hard for the pushback to not take it personal. It's not about you. It's about their internal struggles that they're dealing with. And so, a lot of times, the best love is always the answer and always the best response to any problem, if you think about it, any problem. And so if you want to start there with love and kindness, you can. But, try not to take it personal. And then another way I just deal with that pushback is I have my community with me. Your community and your village is going to keep you. They'll keep you strong. They'll keep you grounded. They'll keep you together. Whoever that community or village will look like for you. And it doesn't always have to be colleagues in your school.
Speaking of a village, that was another question someone had when they were registering is who is in your village and how did they get there? If you want to share, people in your village.
A lot of Black women are in my village. My research is with Black women and girls. That's where it started. When you meet somebody like Rosalind, when I met you, it was this energy and special sisterhood. Sometimes you meet people and you instantly feel that. So I get people added to my village all the time because I get to talk to so many educators across the country. But Yolanda Seeley Ruiz is my best friend. She's also a professor. She does a lot of critical race theory stuff. Bettina Love, Chelsea Love. It's other folks. Sometimes they're folks in academia, some friends from kindergarten I still talk to. My family, my sisters, teachers. It'll be some of you from this call because somebody will email me right away and then we'll probably be on a call tomorrow, trust me. So, yeah, I try to keep a lot of my friends, if not all of them, smarter than me because I want to learn from them. I want them kind. I want kind people. I want to learn from them. If I'm my best self when I'm in their presence, that's how I know they should be in my village. If I'm competitive, if I'm jealous, all those kind of traits, you'll need people like that in your village. If they don't want for you what they want for themselves. And that's an Islamic hadith, want for your brother and sister what you want for yourself. Folks in education don't always, they always want to compete. And so I try to keep that. I try to keep my village having that model. And that's what we want for each other. We just lift each other as we climb.
Well, that was a word. And in case you all didn't hear that, I'm in her village. So let's go back to one more question from the audience that's here right now. It says, generally, in the classes you've taught, have the students who are not in the minority, and I'm assuming they're saying white students, have they shared how they see, feel, and understand the different ways that Black and brown students perceive and process the same given lessons?
Yeah, so I don't know if we're talking about children or my college students. So at Georgia State, Black and brown kids are not the minority. I don't use that word minority. I just say Black or white, or the people I'm talking to. Even people of color is still a vague term. But, you know, sometimes you will have, I haven't had that problem with youth. Youth are more open, especially the younger babies in middle school. They will listen and take it all in. And you give them space, they'll talk about, you know, Blackness and Black history and or any other of these topics. I've had the most issues with my adult students or teachers, like in my audience. Sometimes me saying Blackness so much, they feel like offended. They told me that, where just because I didn't center whiteness enough, it was a problem, and they felt uncomfortable with it. And so, you know, we work through that discomfort, and we talk about our ideologies. A lot of this stuff we learned in media, in books, in from our parents, our household. You know, some households teach racism, and they grow up to be adults. And sexism and all these things. And so I don't care what oppression you're teaching, we're going to teach and navigate it. And we're not going to be so open about, I mean, some things are just wrong. It's okay to tell students this is hate. You know, most of the times they'll come to that themselves, but, you know, we have to be honest with students. All we can do is teach in ways that are excellent, that are anti-racist, and that are joyful. That's all we can do. We may be competing with home life that may teach racism, with a society that says it's okay, sexism and racism, homophobia is okay, right? You got to keep in mind, we can't fix this whole world as teachers. All we can do is do right, do no harm, and, you know, try our best in that way and be honest with the students, and hopefully they'll take our teachings and it'll stay with them.
Amazing. So let's end on joy. There was one more question. It just moved.
Joy question?
Yes, a joy question. It says, how, let's see if I can see it. How, no, the computer's, no.
Look, I'm over here searching Lord of the Flies, thinking about my layered text about the themes. That's going to be my next lesson plan, all right, or unit plan.
Well, and so obviously, I can't get to this question about joy, but I want to say it's been a joy to be with you and to continue to learn from you. Definitely sitting at your feet is a blessing. And so I will now turn this back over to Dr. Bahizadeh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosalind. And actually, I'm going to turn it right over to Dr. Stephanie Cross, another co-director for the center.
Yeah. All right. Well, Rosalind, you put a stop to the Q&A. I thought I was going to have the worst job of the night closing out our session and stopping the Q&A. So thank you for doing that for me. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Dr. Muhammad for spending almost 2 hours with us tonight discussing Cultivating Genius. You know, coming into this night, I really knew it was going to be inspiring, but this is, for me personally, really beyond what I had hoped for. Your urgent call to action to start with genius and joy of our Black students is really is so critically important and needed right now. So thank you for sharing that with us. And as I was listening to Gholdy, I was reflecting on what might be unmotivating in and missing, you know, from my own curriculum and my work with our brilliant pre-service teachers. So I'm leaving thinking about that. You know, how do I use your Hill model, these key pursuits that you talked about as a teacher educator? And then I found myself wondering, you know, how am I centering whiteness and what I do in these courses, even as I report to really be trying to work for equity and justice. So you're leaving me, and I'm sure many others on this call, with a long list of things to really reflect on, to read, to study. I really heard that from you. And then most importantly, to do like the action piece of this. So thank you. You always inspire me. And it was certainly the case tonight. I encourage all of you too to share your appreciations for Gholdy. She can see that text thread. So give her some love and appreciation that she deserves. What is the one thing that you really appreciate about the talk that she gave tonight? I know there's many, but just but try to put one in there for her. And as you do that, I just wanted to take a minute to remind you all about some additional upcoming center events. Nadia mentioned that we have a second speaker in this critical collaborative for English language arts educators that both of these centers are hosting. So Dr. Noah Golden will be with us on October 15th to talk about repositioning for equity. We also have another professional development series starting later this month with Dr. Shante Earl, and she'll focus on using primary artifacts and virtual field trips to really critically re-examine our history. And then finally, we're tentatively planning to host a Soul Speaks open mic night in mid-October, hosted by our talented Dr. Camilla Davis, that focuses on a vision for urban education and beyond. So we really hope we can pull that together. So please keep an eye on our website, our CEJTE website, for more details on these events, and we really hope you can join us. But as you're sharing your appreciations for Gholdy, we really wanted her to get to close and to have the last word. So Gholdy's going to end the session with either a quote or a few words for us to walk away with. So Gholdy, the floor is yours again, and I really deeply appreciate you being here, and I'm so thankful to learn from you every day. So thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie's right next door to me in the office, so I miss being next door. So I was laughing too because somebody said, "Was it like hanging out with Yolanda and Bettina?" It's crazy. We crack up. We are so silly when we're all together. We're not like academics at all. Okay, so I want to end with this idea of what do we do when there's walls of resistance. And this quote was either said or inspired by Sister Harriet Tubman, who we sort of started with. And she said, "If you hear the dogs, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. Keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going." And I want to end with these words because sometimes Sister Harriet Tubman was a model for humanity. And so that's why I said you don't have to teach one. Blackness is so complex and variety. You don't have to teach one type of white person, Black person, Asian person, anybody. You can't, there's so much complexity to us all. And she was one that was a model for humanity because she could have stopped. And she kept going back for more folks, for loving and helping more people. She truly wanted for her brothers and sisters what she wanted for herself. And it wasn't just for Black people, but it was for the whole nation. And so I like to be reminded of these words because sometimes we have people who try to keep us down, who try to hate, who try to keep this work from going. We've seen a lot of that in the news lately, and I have to remind you that if you want a taste of freedom, and as Fannie Lou Hamner said, if everybody ain't free, you ain't free, right? So freedom exists when our people are free. And if you want a taste of freedom for everybody, if you want everybody to have equal rights, humane curriculum, joy in the classroom, genius, equity in the classroom, you have to keep going. You cannot let mediocre standards keep you down. You cannot let mediocre leadership keep you down. If you want the taste of freedom, and freedom is a human right, right? Equity and literacy, all these things, these are rights that our children deeply deserve, that our teachers deeply deserve. So I want to encourage myself. I want to encourage you. We are all in this together. We need each other more than ever, and you don't have to figure it out alone. I always end my sessions with that. You know, don't struggle by yourself. We can figure it out. I'll sit on calls with teachers, and we work out lesson plans and strategies for schools. And so don't sit in isolation. If we want transformation, it happens in collaboration. So I know we've already said our beautiful comments, our questions. So I wanted to show you my email address in case you wanted to stay connected. Be the genius that we need in this world. And I'll just kind of end there. I want to say thank you again for having me. And I just hope that we're all well. Be well, because if we're not well, we can't do this work together.
And with those words, we're closing out the session. Thank you, Gholdy. I can hear the deafening virtual applause right now. You just have to use your imagination. So thank you so much. Woo! All right, y'all. Have a wonderful night, and come back and visit us at the Center for Equity and Justice in Teacher Education. Check out our website. Check out the Urban Literacy Collaborative and Clinics website. And go Panthers!